All right, we're going to call a meeting to order. This is Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority, regular board meeting, August 23rd, 2024. The board did meet in executive session. No votes were taken. We've got some updates on the water reliability plan and some other business matters. So start with a roll call. I'm not exactly sure who's going to do the roll call. Oh, you're going to do it, Mark? No, I'm not Mark, but go ahead.
Alex Schulich.
Here.
Erica Strasburger.
Here.
PJ Lieber.
Here.
Michael Domak.
Present.
Margaret McCormick Barron.
Here.
Jamil Bey. Here. And let the record reflect that there's a quorum present.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers for public comment? All right, hearing none. We'll move to the approval of the June 28th, 2024 and July 26th, 2024 meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from June 28th and July 26th, 2024, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the meeting minutes are approved. Confirmation of CEO approvals. All CEO approvals from the prior month are confirmed. We will move to reports and updates. Start with the Finance Department. Mr. Barca.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. Just make sure that's on. Within your board report for this month, you'll see the financial status update is through July 31st, 2024. Within the report, you will see that year-to-date receipts totaled $827.2 million throughout the year so far. That represents about 53.3% of what we had budgeted for the year. Specifically in July, PWSA experienced stronger than expected receipts for all of its charges. We collected $22.3 million in July versus the budgeted amount of $19.4 million. That represents about a $3 million increase versus what we had budgeted, which is a good thing. I would like to point out, though, that the strong collections in July did make up for the lack of collections in June. This is just due to timing of payments. You may recall last month, we were about $3 million under budget for what we thought we would collect for the month. That was really shifted into July, and we're seeing that make up here again, which is a good thing overall for our budget. Total forecasted year-end receipts are $239 million. This represents about a $430,000 increase versus what we thought we would be for our budget. And on a percentage basis, that's about a 0.18% increase again compared to our budget. So we're really right on track for where we should be for the year. Departmental operating expenditures through July totaled $66 million. That represents about 54.4% of the total budget. Capital expenditures through that same period totaled $69.5 million, and that represents about 37.6% of the budget for the year. It is expected, I will note, that the rate of capital expenditures will continue to accelerate through the remainder of the year, just given construction season. Really starting to see those pay applications, other invoices come in, and that will continue really through really November. You'll see a little bit of a tail off in December from that point. $44.1 million in debt service costs have been paid through July. That represents about 51.5% of the total budget for the year. And forecasted year-end debt service is projected to be $83.8 million, which is about $1.8 million lower than budget. From that basis. And the reason for that savings is we had budgeted for a bond issuance this year that just due to the market and other factors, we're going to delay until next year just to get a better interest rate, we think. Again, just given some dynamics in the market right now. PWSA's cash balance on July 31st, 2024 was $102.7 million. This is $12.7 million higher as compared to July 31st of 2023. And then last, I would just like to note and remind the board that we are in the middle of our budget season here at PWSA. The 2025 operating and capital budget requests are due to finance over the next 2 weeks. From there, that will be followed by a board education session in November, and ultimately leading to the approval of the budgets at the December board meeting. This concludes my report for today. Let's turn it over for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ed? We did see the performance metrics that you're a little ahead of schedule for capital spend.
Mhm.
And given that a lot of these things come rushing in at the very end of the year, so that's a good sign that we'll be as expected for the capital spend for this year.
Absolutely. And if you look, it's not on my report, but if you compare it to where we were last year, we're well ahead of our capital expenditures this year. So as compared to last year. So it's a good sign overall.
Good. I think that's good for the authority and good for our stakeholders.
Yep.
Thanks. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the engineering department report. Rachel.
Good morning, Chair Shuley and members of the board. I'll begin with an update on our lead service line replacements program. A total of 11,483 public and 8,232 private side lead service signs have been replaced through August 20th, 2024 across all contracts. I do have some slides this morning. So this slide is showing our active lead service line work areas. Green is showing our neighborhood contracts and blue is showing our small diameter water main contracts. Verification work is currently ongoing in Allentown, Homewood West, Squirrel Hill, Garfield, and Mount Washington. Verification again involves physical excavation by our contractor to identify the service line material and thus whether it needs to be replaced. Replacement work is ongoing in Marshall Shadeland, Allentown, Homewood North, Larimer, and Homewood West. Restoration of roads, sidewalks, and landscaping is ongoing in Elliott, Marshall Shadeland, Spring Garden, Perry South, Allentown, Homewood North, and Larimer. You can go back a slide, Cameron, please. Thank you. In total, we currently have 8 active construction contracts involving lead service line replacement work, and those 8 contracts are performing verification, lead service line replacement, and/or restoration. So in this slide is shown the planned lead service line work areas. I showed this last month as well. And both of these slides, active work areas and planned work areas, have been updated to show the progress. So the previous slide has some new areas where we've actually started work since last month. And this shows the planned work areas for the contracts which the board approved in May. As I mentioned, work on these contracts has begun actually just this week. And those active work areas were reflected in the and this has been an annual program with 2 contracts since 2017. In 2024, we actually awarded 3 contracts based on increased funding. We have received PennVest funding in the amount of $46 million for the 2023 through 2025 program years. And in 2023, we replaced 715 catch basins, and we anticipate replacing 600 in 2024. For context, there are approximately 22,700 catch basins in our system. As to note, the city's Department of Public Works is responsible for clearing the inlet surfaces when they do street cleaning, and PWSA is responsible to maintain and replace, if needed, the actual subsurface basins. So in this slide are some examples, obviously, of some failing curb inlets, which, as you can see, can result in road and sidewalk failures, tripping hazards, and flooding risks. Next slide, please. Shown are some additional examples of opportunities. In the center, we can see some accumulation of debris resulting from a failing inlet. On the left is another failing curb inlet resulting in hazards and sidewalk and road failure. And on the right is actually, that's a water main that's actually going through a catch basin. Next slide, please. So this one shows the before and after visual. In the top photo, the inlet on the left has been compromised over time by previous paving overlays, which have essentially decreased the throat opening size and compromised its ability to catch stormwater. And there's also an inlet across the street on the right side of the photo that you really can't even see because of the collected debris. So the bottom photo shows the same location with both inlets replaced with newer style inlets and new subsurface catch basins. Next slide, please. And lastly, just a couple more photos showing examples of new inlets and associated restoration, all resulting in improved stormwater flow and safety. Those are all my slides for today. So moving on to the Highland Reservoir Pump Station, we are continuing progress on this major vertical project. Currently, with the installation of cast-in-place concrete walls and grade beams, wall pipe penetrations, and underground electrical conduits and plumbing. The following project is currently out for bid for engineering design: the Aspenwall Water Treatment Plant Raw Water Intakes projects, and proposals are due September 6th, which represents a week extension. There are currently no engineering projects out for bid for construction. And finally, I'd like to recognize 2 accomplishments in the engineering and construction department. Barry King, our Director of Engineering and Construction, recently co-authored an article titled PWSA's Trenchless Success Drives Reliability Mission, published in Trenchless Technology magazine. And this article highlighted our success in using trenchless methods to rehabilitate rising mains 3 and 4, which is part of our water reliability plan. Thanks to Barry for taking the time to share this success story for the benefit of the larger engineering and construction community. And next, Benjamin Grunauer, an associate project manager in our construction group, recently earned his Master of Science in Engineering at UCLA with a certificate in sustainable water engineering. I want to congratulate Ben on this significant educational milestone. This concludes my report. Thank you, and I'll turn it over for any questions.
Very good. Any questions or comments for Rachel?
I just want to comment on the catch basins. It's a really great reminder of the importance of the infrastructure and things that we all drive by and walk by every day and don't think about. But then when you show us the improvements that we're able to make, it really makes a difference in the quality of life of our region. So thanks for the work and thanks for making sure that we're all aware of it.
Thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's made a big difference, especially with the number of overlays and so forth. We get less and less curb reveal, and so now with the basements, the catch basins out in the street with a grid, and I think it's certainly more efficient. And there is another added benefit that I remember as a kid. There's less soccer balls and basketballs that make it in there. So
That's right.
But anyway,
Absolutely.
thank you. Any other questions for Rachel or comments? All right, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Mr. Sideric, Chief Environmental Compliance and Ethics Officer Report.
All right. Good morning, everyone, again. So later today in the meeting, I'm going to be presenting a resolution to the board regarding a consent decree. And as such, thought it'd be beneficial here this morning to provide you some updates on our open consent orders and the work that we have completed to satisfy those compliance obligations. So I have 4 of them. The first one is November 17th of 2017 was a consent order associated with corrosion control in our lead service lines. PWSA has complied to date with all of the requirements under this order, and we received a permit from DEP in March of this year, which designated optimization of our corrosion control program. We continue to advance our lead service line replacement efforts and maintain our corrosion control treatment process. And as a result of these efforts, we've achieved and maintained historically low lead levels in our water system. The last remaining activities in this consent order is a completion of a year's worth of specific corrosion-related water quality monitoring that we have to conduct both at the water treatment plant as well as out in the distribution system. We've been performing that since March of this year. So March of 2025, we anticipate to have satisfied that obligation, and hopefully we'll be able to close that consent order out. The second one is from May 7th of 2021. This had a couple of components associated with construction prior to authorization, our interconnect valve vault pits, as well as some chemical unloading activities. PWSA developed standard operating procedures and staff training to satisfy activities around permitting for these construction projects, as well as chemical unloading activities that occur at the treatment plant. These operating procedures are reviewed annually and provided to pertinent staff involved with these activities, and I provide those records to DEP on an annual basis. The last remaining obligation under this particular consent order is completion of improvements to several of our interconnect valve vaults that will manage accumulation of groundwater in these structures. The work was awarded at the April board meeting and construction is underway, including maintenance of the vault structures and some drain improvements. We anticipate completion of the vaults that are identified in the order to be completed by the end of this year, which will also be in compliance with DEP's schedule and satisfy the remaining item under this consent order. The third one is from August 3rd of 2022. This is associated with our above ground storage tanks at 3 of our chlorine booster stations. In the development of the environmental compliance program, if you can still hear me, the PWSA actually self-identified 3 existing tank systems at a couple of our chlorine booster stations, which do not meet current storage tank design standards or registration requirements. Upon that self-identification is when we entered into this consent order. And since then, we've registered all of those storage tanks. We've installed monitoring systems and we're performing regular reporting to DEP. There are currently 3 projects underway at all of these locations to actually replace these with new facilities and new storage tanks. And one of those is substantially complete and hopefully will be handed over to operations later this summer. And the other 2 are under construction. Finally is the September 6th, 2019 consent order, which is associated with our clear well replacement and related projects. The September 2019 order established essentially the foundation of what you've heard called our water reliability plan, which has the ultimate goal of completing replacement of our clear well at the water treatment plant. This particular order was amended in May of 2021 and again in August of 2022. And these amendment requests were accepted by DEP to address project schedule adjustments associated with events that were really outside of PWSA's control over the last 5 years, such as the time around COVID, as well as some of the associated supply chain disruptions that moved schedules. So to comply with the order, PWSA has completed or has in progress many significant capital improvement projects to help increase resiliency in our system and ultimately prepare for the clear well replacement. A few of these projects occur the standby power and pump upgrades that have occurred at our Brilliant Pump Station, rehabilitation of rising mains 3 and 4 that go between our Brilliant Yard or Brilliant Pump Station up to our Highland 2 Reservoir, installation of a new cover and liner at the Highland 2 Reservoir, construction of the Highland Reservoir Pump Station, which is in progress, Rachel just reported on, installation of the new cover and liner at Lanford Reservoir, and finally construction of a new booster disinfection and flow metering station at our Lanford Reservoir, which is also in progress. PWSA, as Rachel had mentioned, is also preparing to go to bid later this year with our Aspinwall Pump Station, Brecken Pump Station, and Clearwell Bypass project. This will be a once-in-a-generation upgrade to our 2 primary pumping stations and prepare a bypass around the Clearwell to allow it to be taken out of service. And finally, we have awarded design contracts to 2 consultants to complete the last remaining water reliability projects under this. The interim feed project, which is occurring out of our Aspinwall Pump Station, as well as the actual clear well replacement. Last year, though, PWSA requested an additional amendment to the 2019 consent order to update our water reliability projects and the associated compliance schedule. These were originally developed over 5 years ago, and currently where we're at, we recognize the need to adjust that schedule in that project. So PWSA, upon proposing that, DEP then asked, instead of issuing a 3rd amendment to the order, that it be converted actually into a consent decree. So this is what later in the meeting, I'll be presenting a resolution to you that'll request the CEO to be granted approval to enter into that, which really will memorialize these final water reliability project plans, as well as establishing compliance dates for the completion of those activities. I've certainly simplified all of the efforts that we've taken here to achieve compliance with these orders. But as noted, we are actively working on all of these projects to satisfy our obligation under these orders. But I'd say perhaps as importantly as satisfying the orders, all of these infrastructure projects continue to advance PWSA's mission, which is to support the region by protecting public health and the environment through the delivery of safe and reliable water services, and with that commitment to future generations, which is why these infrastructure projects are needed. So that provides a summary of the existing orders and where we stand on them. As always, questions from you, but if there's questions on environmental compliance or ethics from our employees, contractors, or the board, I'm always here to answer those. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Saderi? So on the transition from the order to the consent decree. Are there any civil penalties involved?
Correct. There are no civil penalties that are stated in the consent decree, so there is no penalty for making the change from an order to a decree. Both documents, the consent order of 2019 as well as the consent decree, do have penalties in them for not achieving certain schedule milestones which could be enacted. But the change in mechanism from consent order to consent decree was not assessed a civil penalty.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
All right. Through the power of technology, hopefully we'll get the Chief Executive Officer report. Will is convalescent. That's the right word?
I'm
Oh, you're
doing
out there?
yeah, I'm doing you all a favor by taking this one remotely. Sorry I couldn't be there. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Well, good morning, Chair Shuley, members of the board and PWSA staff and members of the public in attendance. My remarks today are really just to call attention to our team. And one of the highlights of my job is that I have the opportunity to interact with so many different members of our diverse group of employees that I like to call Team PGH2O. Their commitment to our mission and our customers is really inspiring and often occurs with little recognition because their extraordinary efforts are routine for their standards. So throughout the course of even just this summer, our operations team has responded to major water main breaks 24/7 at sensitive locations like the Bloomfield and Fort Duquesne bridges. That team is ultimately assisted by our construction management group within the engineering department to manage contractors who are responsible for making those challenging repairs. Often that work takes place overnight. The team at our water treatment plant is operations management to ensure that large breaks like those that we experienced on the bridges don't impact our water production. And that same team is often responding to power or equipment outages that happen at all hours. In addition, our 24/7 dispatch operators that are housed within customer service take calls from customers and coordinate our response to emergencies day and night. And our public affairs group responds to media inquiries that come in at the same time that these incidents take place. And just last week, we experienced a power outage at where you are right now, our 1200 Penn location, that impacted our main data center after business hours. And as a result of that outage, multiple parts of our technology infrastructure were inaccessible, including the phone system that is used by that same emergency dispatch team and customer contact center and a number of the different applications that support our internal groups. Paul Spara, who I believe is in the room with you this morning. He's a senior manager on our technology services team, worked through the night. Hours to minimize any disruption to our customers and internal users. So we were back up and running the next business day, and our customers and most of our employees didn't know the better of it. So, Paul's work is just one example of the efforts that go on behind the scenes for us to deliver on our mission of providing safe and reliable water services. And while we're far from perfect, I believe that the city is really lucky to have Team PGH2O on call to support us. So with that, I'll wrap up my remarks and happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions or comments for Will? Well, first of all, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I'm not surprised. You guys are A+ in your commitment to the authority. Thank you for being there. And Will, I know you probably had a sense of pride for the shout out that we got at the convention in terms of our lead replacement projects that Governor Shapiro highlighted. So it was another point of acknowledgement. So it was wonderful. Any other thoughts, questions?
Thank you, all of you. Outstanding.
All right, we'll move to resolutions. We'll start with resolution number 48. And speak of the devil, there's Julie.
Good morning, Chairman Shuley and board members. Resolution number 48 is a request to approve a change order of a professional services agreement for electronic bill presentment and payment and bill print and mailing services. PWSA project number 2020-001-OPS to Kubra. This is a request for additional funding to address continually rising postage costs, absorption of credit card fees due to increased payment activity by our residential customers, and printing costs for non-access, non-payment, and informational letter campaigns. CEO approval of an additional $403,019.52 for this contract occurred in January of 2023. The current request is for $731,928.60. The total amount over the approved contract would be $1,134,948.12. Staff recommends that the board approve this change order.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Peg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
What is the length of this contract?
Great question. So the contract is actually up December 31st of this year. We have 3 option years. We are asking for pricing right now so we can determine if we're going to option 1 year in addition to the current contract and or go out for a request for proposals.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of resolution number 48, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Julie. Resolution number 48 is approved.
Thank you.
Resolution number 49. Back to the top. Frank Sederi.
All right, here it is. Resolution number 49 is the resolution authorizing the chief executive officer to enter into a consent decree from the Department of Environmental Protection, establishing schedules for various projects to complete replacement of the clear well.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I think you covered a lot of this in your report, but I do think for the record, we ought to indicate that this is really kind of an historic moment for the authority. Something that we have been discussing and negotiating for quite some time. And it really puts a sense of purpose here and some real deadlines that need to be met over the coming years. And I know that we've discussed a lot of this, and we're talking about projects that reach out all the way to 2034. Working with DEP on this, and I'm sure that it'll be a collaborative opportunity for both of us to work on this. So congratulations to all of you, the work that Frank, that you're working on, certainly Rachel and finance, everyone that's involved with this involved with this consent decree. I think it's a turning point in a way for the authority. I mean, we've been working toward these goals for quite some time, but now, we really have a document that holds our feet to the fire and says, okay, let's get this stuff done. And I'm sure our stakeholders and our residents are excited about the opportunity to see our system improve. So thank you for all of your work on this. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just like to second what you just said, Alex. If it happens every 100 years, to me, by definition, that's history. And you have a spare moment, go into the Post-Gazette or other local newspaper archives and look at what was happening at the time this existing clear well was constructed, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, you missed it, Mike. I said earlier that the ribbon cutting is 2034. And I want to be invited, whether I'm in a wheelchair or not. I want to make it to the ribbon cutting.
Yeah, I want a piece of the old clear well.
All right. Any other comments? Thank you, Frank. All in favor of resolution number 49, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, resolution number 49 is approved. We move to resolution 50. Rachel.
Morning again, resolution number 50, approving the award of a capital contract for the construction of the 2020 sewers under structures contract 1 Carroll Street project to Mealy and Sons. Capital budget $3,086,000.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of resolution number 50, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution number 50 is approved. We move to resolution 51.
Approving a change order for an operating contract for construction of 2024 surface restoration project to Mealy and Sons, and an amendment of a professional services agreement operations for construction management and inspection services to Hatch Associates Consultants. Cumulative operating budget $1.1 million. So this is a change order to our surface restoration project. Finance was able to identify that we could spend an additional $1.1 million on this project, which will allow us to complete approximately another 70 sites for restoration against our current backlog of paving sites.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, make a comment here. I really appreciate how this was written up. When you see the word change order, you go like, okay, now what? You know, this is, even though we have to call it a change order here for accounting and contract tracing purposes, it's more like a momentum maintaining order. And so I just want to sort of mention that. I appreciate the quantitative metrics there on what the backlog is and what additional progress might be made here. And it's also valuable for, you know, somebody like me that tries to sort of keep track of all these various people we contract with and, you know, who's getting a lot done and who sometimes gets bogged down a little more than others. So just appreciate that.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. This isn't what we call our IDIQ, indefinite quantity. It's not, this change order is not a result of increased costs. It's allowing us to simply get more work done.
Thank you. Any more comments, questions? All those in favor of resolution number 51, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, resolution number 51 is approved. So that is the end of the resolutions. Just want to, do we have any other business that comes before the authority today? All right. Well, we're coming here. Time is flying by here, and it's hard to believe that we're approaching the end of August and we're getting to Labor Day. On behalf of the board, wish everyone, our ratepayers, stakeholders, everyone that's involved with the authority, happy Labor Day weekend, and look forward to the conclusion of the summer here. It's going to be an interesting couple of months coming up. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting is adjourned.